Okay. Hi, good afternoon to all of you. I'm Jed Delegado, the Senior Communications Officer for Asia Pacific of the Global Break Free from Plastic movement. And we're here virtually, together this afternoon for the virtual press launch of the plastic-free campuses. So we'll be hearing a lot today about how campuses can go plastic free, how other universities and schools have done this successfully. So yeah, let's begin. Yeah. And of course, because we're now in a new normal, we're now doing it virtually. For everyone, just a reminder to follow at BRK Free Plastic. That's the Break Free from Plastic Twitter handle. And follow hashtag Break Free from Plastic and hashtag Plastic Free Campuses in Twitter. We'll be posting live updates there so that everyone who wants to tune in, whether via Twitter and eventually later, we'll share the recordings for everyone to see and to learn more about the plastic-free campuses. Okay, amidst this COVID-19 pandemic that everyone globally has been experiencing right now with all the quarantines and the lockdowns in your respective cities, it's really an opportune time for us to build solidarity despite the different contexts that we're into, the different cultures and history that we're all coming from. So let's begin. So I would like you to get acquainted first with the Plastic Free Campuses campaign. That's why for our first speaker, we'll have Tiara Beatriz Samson, the Plastic Free Campuses coordinator. Tiara has been working with the organizing committee members from different parts of the world to really engage schools and campuses to go plastic free. Tiara?
Thanks, Jed. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'll be talking a bit about plastic-free campuses. I hope everyone's hearing me all right. So the Plastic-Free Campus program started last year. It aims to unite and help schools and universities worldwide move away from single-use plastic, implement alternative systems on campus, and shift the narrative on plastic pollution. And this movement sprouted from the fundamental idea that educational institutions can set the standard for institutions at large. Solutions implemented at the campus level can be replicated at city, county, state, and country levels. And why do we care about campuses? Schools and universities for decades and decades play a big role in shaping the future of the youth and have a direct impact in developing their knowledge, their lifestyles, and worldviews after they graduate. Students play a big role in being part of the solution more than being part of the problem. And at the same time, it's been youth movements throughout history that have been crucial in sparking radical societal change. Students have been at the forefront of the most social movements, and that includes the Tiananmen Square protests in China, to the Vietnam War protests in the US, and more recently, it's been the youth that has been leading the climate change movement and more fighting for their immediate future. And that brings us to plastic-free campuses. It's a global movement, and it's a global network of schools and students going plastic-free. It's an avenue for them to share their knowledge and discussions through focus group discussions, online sessions, Facebook groups. And it also acts as a resource hub for plastic-free tools, plastic-free events, and everything you might need to your road to a plastic-free community. And this is one of our resources available on the website. It's a campus blueprint for administrators. That's a collated step-by-step tool for principals or administrators to use that compiles the best practices that everyone's been doing all over the world who are already plastic-free schools. And this step-by-step also includes what you need to be considered plastic-free. That means you have set policies in your schools and have implemented alternative systems for your schools to procure cafeteria food, etc., and everything that goes inside and out of your university without plastic. This also includes incorporating educational curriculums in your school so that everyone is on board your school. All the students are on board this initiative. It also gives you resources for an action plan if you're a student or a parent or an alumnus of a school. If you want your school to go plastic free, there are tools in the website that you could use. And this is also gives a platform for students to get and apply for micro grants. And this also is applicable to schools and organizations who would like to get funding for the initiatives and projects that they want to do in their own schools. And this was all initiated by coalition members or movement members of the Break Free from Plastic movement. The Break Free from Plastic movement is the first movement in which all groups from all over the world work at different stages of the plastics life cycle who have come together to work towards the collective vision. And that is the goal to achieve systemic change by tackling plastic pollution along the whole plastics value chain, focusing on prevention rather than cure and advancing lasting solutions. We have over 1,900 organizations all around the world and 6,000 individuals who are already part of the movement. And the Plastic Free Campuses Organizing Committee is part of the Break Free from Plastic movement. It came from the Break Free from Plastic movement, and it's formed by organization members working with different schools all around different regions, all around the world, including Plastic Pollution Coalition, PLAN, Student Pergs, Five Gyres, Fundación El Arbol in Latin America, TANAL in India, BFFP China, China Zero Waste Alliance, Gallifrey Foundation in Switzerland, City to Sea, and Surfers Against Sewage in the UK. And to date, collectively, we have over 3,200 schools who are working with these organizations to go plastic-free and are in consultations with us and our team from all around the world. And in the Philippines, where I'm from, that includes Silliman University and Ateneo de Davao University. And we're also already in talks with Ateneo de Manila, Miriam College, De La Salle, Das Marinas, and University of the Philippines, Diliman. And that brings us to today. So we had to launch digitally because of COVID. And we are also shifting our project online for the meantime as a response to the pandemic. And we have shifted our operations online. So we are doing our best to prepare students and administrators worldwide to give them tools and be prepared once this pandemic is over. This is a time to plan and assess our existing systems and plan better solutions and policies for our own schools. So that's a brief roundup of plastic-free campuses. Jed?
Yeah, thank you, Tiara, for that wonderful introduction to the rationale behind this campaign. Our next speaker is Alex Gordon. She's a current sophomore at Eckerd College in St. Petersburg in Florida. She's majoring in environmental studies and political science. And she's the current Break Free from Plastics campaign coordinator for the Florida Student Public Interest Research Group, or PIG chapter in Eckerd College. Last year, she was successful in leading the effort to get her college to sign the Break Free from Plastic Pledge, permitting Eckerd to end the college in spending on all single-use plastic items. And with that, she was a recipient of the Emerging Leader Award given by the Post-Landfill Action Network. So friends, let's hear it from Alex Gordon to share her experience in leading that amazing work in Florida, USA. Alex?
Yes, hello everyone. First of all, thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, okay, awesome. Well, like Jed said, I'm a sophomore at Eckerd College in St. Petersburg, Florida, but I'm actually back home in Houston, Texas right now. And I do organize for the Florida Public Interest Research Group. And through them, I started the Break Free from Plastics campaign about a little over a year ago now at Eckerd College. So basically how it all started is I heard about this really awesome Break Free from Plastics campus pledge and decided that seemed like something Eckerd should be doing. So I formed a coalition between myself, HERG, our Office of Sustainability on campus, and our Reduce Single Use program, which was being funded by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, NOAA, through their Reduce Single Use Plastics program. And those three organizations really spearheaded this movement. Eckerd is a very special case because we all go to school right on the beach. Most of our students are environmental studies or marine science majors, so it's pretty safe to say we're all socially aware of our environmental impact already. But what we really needed was a firm policy to be there regardless of the behavioral changes. So it was really interesting to see how this pledge would impact our already socially aware campus. I'm really happy to report that in the fall of 2019, so last October, we actually succeeded in getting the president of the campus and our student government president to sign the Break Free from Plastics pledge, and we started implementation this spring. It's definitely looking a little bit differently than what we intended, but we're still going ahead with our original goal to start implementing the Break Free from Plastics pledge this spring, regardless of whether we're on campus or not in the fall. So overall, it's been quite interesting to see this work at Eckerd. It took a lot of grassroots organizing and combined efforts, but it was obviously quite worth it. In regards to what I hope to see as we move forward dealing with COVID-19 and perhaps after the pandemic, I think we're all in a really interesting situation that opens us up to being able to make quite deep systemic change, which is pretty exciting. And I'm really honored to be part of a movement and part of a nonprofit that's kind of in the middle of making these changes. I think this is a really perfect time to make those deep changes we've been looking to make for a while. I also hope that this brings to light some of our deep structural disparities that we have in the system we're living in, and expose some ways that we can perhaps mend those. And finally, I just really hope that this shows us all as a global community how interdependent we all are, regardless of where we're at or what we're doing. And I think that's going to be crucial in pushing the environmental movement forward, especially after something as big as this. Just showing that regardless of what we're doing, we're all really just one global community. And we should be treating environmental impacts and climate change with a similar urgency and similar group effort as we're treating COVID. So I think we have time for questions later, but again, thank you so much for letting me speak and share my story. This is so awesome, and I'm so happy to be part of it.
Thank you, Alex. So from Florida, USA, we go to Dumaguete City in the Philippines. We have Mark Paitan. Mark is currently a first-year mechanical engineering student at Suleiman University in Dumaguete. As a student, he helps the university for the Student Government Environmental Committee. And as a member of the university's Zero Waste or the Waste Management Committee. And recently, with the commitment of Suleiman University to become plastic-free, it's really Mark and his group who really help, and work with the administrators in really in that commitment for the university. So we have Mark Paitan from Dumaguete City. Mark?
Hello. Hello, everyone. I am Mark Paitan from Dumaguete City, Philippines. And I am very thankful for this opportunity to speak in front of you and to share my story in this plastic-free journey. So I started this advocacy when I have attended a convergence, zero waste convergence in our community headed by Break Free from Plastic collaborators. And so when I got back to school and when I was elected as president of the student government, we have initiated this zero waste project in the school, and part of it is to become a plastic-free campus. And the key strategy in implementing the project is really to push the administrator, in which case we have set a lot of meetings with the principal and encouraging her to really for the policy and to implement it throughout our campus. And so we have made significant progress in which the canteens were no longer selling plastic food products in plastic containers, in plastic cups, and also they were no longer using plastic straws, plastic cutleries, and so on. And with that, a lot of students, a lot of youth, a lot of young people inspired, and in which case we formed this small group called the Zero Waste Youth Negros Oriental. And recently on January, we have gathered several students from Dumaguete City, Negros Oriental, and also our neighboring island, Siquijor Island, where we gathered into one convention and we tackled about the zero waste advocacy and the plastic-free campuses on how we can make our campuses plastic-free. And so with that, we have also achieved to encourage the university to really declare or to sign for the campus declaration to become plastic free. But because we are presented right now with this COVID-19 pandemic, it is really a challenge to our commitment since we are dealing with limited resources, because we are used to appearing personally to the people, to the communities, to the schools, in which case we cannot relay information that fast compared to before. However, this challenge will not stop us, will not stop me in promoting the advocacy, because as again, this plastic pollution is really a global issue and it is a major contributor to climate change. And we must stop climate change because we need to fight it. We need to fight climate change the same way we fight COVID-19. So thank you once again. Thank you for having me to speak in front of you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. That's a nice, line, because we're all fighting the same battles, single-use plastics, climate change, yeah, and now with the threat to our health with the pandemic. The next speaker is Sophie Mcdonald. She's a biology graduate from the University of Bristol in the United Kingdom, and has always been driven to protect the environment. During her time at the university, she founded the Bristol Against Plastic Society and worked in the university sustainability department to eradicate unnecessary single-use plastics on campus. So let's hear it from Sophie Mcdonald.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me speak today. It's really great to meet you all virtually. Just as Jed touched upon, I worked in Bristol University to eradicate a lot of unnecessary single-use plastics. And one way that I did that was establishing the Bristol Against Plastic Society, which gave sort of a platform for all the students to get engaged with the issue and have their voices heard by university staff so that they can make real changes that they wanted. And then from then I moved on to work in the sustainability department itself, and that's where I implemented a fairly ambitious strategy to completely eliminate all of the single-use plastics from catering and hospitality in the university under a pretty tight timescale, which we were all really proud of and a lot of people really embraced, which was fantastic. And since then, I worked with City to Sea temporarily, which is of course one of the partners for Breakthrough from Plastic. And then in terms of the pandemic and the situation that we're in at the moment, I've had quite a lot of thoughts. I think on the one hand, I've been aware that people's priorities have shifted away from the environment, and especially in pollution, that people are kind of being navigated away from the issue, whereas it's still as important as ever. And then on the other hand, I think I've got sort of a renewed sense of optimism which I think is spreading more and more as we settle into the pandemic. It's less scary than it was at the very start for some people, and we're kind of looking towards the future and how we can rebuild a greener future and avoid investing in environmentally destructive practices, and instead invest in, you know, cleaner, greener practices and industries as we move out of a global recession. And I think finally, I just want to highlight the fact that I myself and a lot of other people have a greater appreciation for our outside and our nature, because when you have something restricted from you, you've really learned to appreciate it a lot more, and you want to fight for it more. And I hope that's where we come out of this pandemic. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sophie. So the next speaker is from, yeah, I'll call on Dison Chi first. Dison is a youth activist from Honolulu. He's passionate about tackling the issue of plastic pollution, and is the founder of Project Ocean Hawaii. Through that project, he visits schools and community events to do presentation about solutions to plastic pollution, as well as civic engagement to help pass bills that will benefit both the planet and the people. So, Dison from Hawaii.
Aloha, Michael Cole. Great to be a part of this. Thank you so much for inviting me here. It's really great to see everyone here, and really to see everyone be stoked about taking on the issue of plastic pollution too. So my name is Dyson. I'm from Honolulu, Hawaii, and as Jed said, I'm the founder of Project Ocean Hawaii. And really, before I go anywhere, I think I want to start off with what my motivation is for the work that I do regarding taking on plastic pollution. So, I mean, really, first of all, I enjoy this Earth. You know, it's kind of comfortable. I prefer living on Earth compared to, you know, Mars or Pluto, for sure. And so that's part of the motivation of taking action to protect our planet. We can live here. But I think more than that, taking on plastic pollution, for me at least, has been beyond just keeping our Earth habitable. It's been beyond just having a place to live. I think it's really about protecting the kind of places that we love and keeping this Earth as a beautiful place that we can enjoy and not just live in, to make it a place that we can thrive in, that really becomes our home. And so that's really the motivation for where a lot of my work comes from. It's to keep this planet as a beautiful place, not just a habitable place. And so with that, one of the campaigns that I helped to initiate back in my hometown of Honolulu is to get a variety of single-use plastics banned here. Honolulu, for those of you who don't know, is the capital of the state of Hawaii. And so because of that, we have the greatest population on this island. In fact, around 2/3 of our population lives on the island that I live on. And so being able to get single-use plastic legislation passed here would be an incredible step forward, but it was also, a lot of people at least considered it as an unrealistic step forward. A lot of the industry, plastics industry, food industry is based here in Hawaii. And so for decades, people had been trying to get this sort of legislation passed to no avail. We did get a bag ban passed, and that's about as much as we got in about the span of 10 years. However, the initiative that I started managed to gather around 1,500 youth who came out and supported this bill to ban a variety of single-use plastics. And really, with the support of so many youth around the island, this bill could not fail, and it didn't fail. It managed to pass actually this December. And less than 4 months afterwards, another one of the Hawaii counties actually passed a very similar bill. And so now 2 out of the 4 Hawaii counties have banned single-use plastics ranging from plastic utensils, styrofoam, straws, stirrers, certain plastic bags, and so on and so forth. And so it's really been an incredible step forward, just seeing where the power of youth can really take a lot of this legislation and how much of a difference our voices put together can make. And looking at it, coming from the pandemic side, the pandemic has been earth-shattering for many of us. It's torn people's lives apart. It's ended some of those lives earlier than they should have been. And it's been devastating. I'll admit that. The pandemic has been devastating to many people. But I think amid all the devastation, we really need to look at this pandemic as a second chance, because it's revealed the cracks in the glass of our society. It's revealed the injustices, the inequities that exist. And those inequities have, at least in the time I've been alive, never been more obvious. And so being able to take those lessons that we're learning during this pandemic to apply them to our future, so that way we become better and stronger than ever, is, I think, the real lesson that I'm taking away from our current situation with COVID-19. And I really, all communities around the world, the chance to do that, because only together we're going to defeat the issue of plastic pollution and the larger issues that exist in our world. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dyson. So from Hawaii, we go to China. Our last speaker is Michaela Yang. She's currently a senior high school student who founded an environmental protection organization in her school, dedicated to bringing together students to love and respect our Mother Nature and do something to protect the environment. So let's hear it from Michaela from China.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michaela from China, and I'm a senior student in the International Department of Henan Experimental High School, and also am the president of the Environmental Protection Organization in my school. Last year in November and December, China has implemented garbage classification policy, and we followed the footsteps and began to call on the students and teachers in the school to classify garbage. We found that there were not enough trash cans in our school, so we decided to make more trash cans by using unwanted materials after we go back to school and put them in the corners of the school. And I think environmental protection is a very deep concept. All of us have known we should protect the environment and Mother Nature since we were born, but just few people really do it. The first time that I realized we should do the environmental protection was when my friends and me were talking about it. Their attitude towards the matter really broke my heart. But luckily, I didn't give up. It was their attitude that made me know that the society is the people to protect the environment, and inspired me to pay more attention to the environmental protection since then, and which is the most essential reason why I think my environmental work is important. And in my opinion, there are three most important ways to protect. The first thing is planting trees. Secondly is making the best use of everything. And the third one is educating. Among them, I think the most important way is to educate. Since recently, I'm planning to be a volunteer to educate children in hospital, to educate them about we should protect the environment from now on. And the reason why I decided to be a volunteer to educate children is that I think children are the future of our society. They can gain much more knowledge and thoughts rather than adults. Because as we know, nowadays we human beings, and especially grown up, always compare development with environmental protection. So like our parents, teachers, even peers, many of them will have to discard environmental protection because of some interest and money that they have to tangle with. However, the values of a person's life are most easily shaped when they are young. And we know that the next generation will be those children who will be the dominant force in the whole society. If we have the ability to let them know the importance of environmental protection and make them do so, then I think it is a very meaningful thing for me. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Michaela. So of course, with the time zone difficulty, it's hard to really gather all the young activists, plastic-free activists that we have in the organizing committee. But we're glad, thank you technology, that we have Isadora Bertoli, who will share her experience through like a 1-minute video. From Isadora is from Brazil, and she founded the Zero Waste Youth Brazil in Florianopolis, Brazil. Oh, that's the first time that I heard that place. And then the UFSC Sem Plástico. So,
Hello, my name is
yeah.
Isadora. I am from Brazil. I started the movement UFSC Plastic Free in Florianopolis, Brazil. UFSC is the name of my university. And the biggest reason why we started this here in Brazil is because we truly believe that we are nature and we are the oceans. And the more we divide ourselves, the more we separate ourselves from nature, the sicker we get. Plastic is not good for nature, is not good for humanity. And this is why we fight for a plastic-free society, a plastic-free university, and we spread consciousness about the unity that we all are.
Yeah, so that's Isabella from Brazil. Now we have Young Urias from the Post Landfill Action Network in Pittsburgh, USA. So we have Yang. She's been working in sustainability department, and she has organized fossil fuel divestment campaign there in Pittsburgh, in Pennsylvania, USA. So yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Young. I work for the Post Landfill Action Network, specifically on making college campuses plastic free and zero waste free in general. I work remotely out of Pittsburgh, PA, but we work with colleges all across the US and sometimes internationally as well. I graduated last year, and since I've worked with over 60 colleges, and college students are really the change makers. They have great ideas, they have energy, and they're ready to fight for our future. Our future, because climate change and plastic are related. The oil and gas industry is using plastic as a backup to the normal things that extraction is used for, and we need to stop them so that we still have a future.
I am seeing some questions from the media in our chat box, but don't worry. We'll have a proper quick Q&A session later. So of course we all love the experiences, the different sharing of our young activists, how they have done these plastic-free campaigns in their respective universities. And we all know, in order to push for that campaign to be successful, we need to get the buy-in of school administrators and the administrators and the leaders in the campuses. I actually remember my experience when I was doing my MA in the Netherlands. I was part of the environment committee, and we even had to convince the administrator of the school to have proper waste segregation bins in the building. Yeah, I was actually surprised, for a developed country like the Netherlands. So we're lucky to have someone, an administrator from Geneva, from the International School of Geneva, Jan Dijkstra, who will share to us, a perspective coming from school administrators. Jan?
All right, good morning, everybody, for me, anyway. It's 8:30 morning here. It's great to be a middle-aged sort of activist among the young. It's fantastic to hear your stories. Yeah, my perspective is different. I'm a teacher. I am also the sustainability coordinator at the International School of Geneva, and I'm a father. I have children who are roughly your age. So for me, my role has been to try and create a platform within my school that will allow students at a younger age to get engaged with what you're doing. I mean, I'm so encouraged to hear your stories and not only your idealism, but also your impact, right? Because I think realistically, it's not just the beauty of the story, but we actually want to make change. We actually want to see the differences and take hold of the world and make it our own, right? Create that new normal, which is a sort of post-plastics world, right? So idealism is the start, but really the outcome that we want is a changed world, right? So we have to be sort of keeping that an eye. It's not just a story. We want to make it reality. So from my perspective is to really, within the school, I wanted, first of all, I didn't want my own children to look at me in 10 years and say, Dad, where were you? What were you doing, right? Why didn't you do something when all the information was out there? So it was sort of, you know, yeah, I wanted to be a nice granddad, you know, at some point I'd like to be that. So I want to be able to tell the stories how I was a bit more courageous perhaps than I was before. And I can tell you, I teach math and TOK, which is fairly academic. So to stepping into the world of action was quite outside my own comfort zone. So you're probably much better at that than I am. So I learned from my students a lot. So it's an exchange, really. What I did within my school was in collaboration with an alumna of the school, who I want to shout out to at this moment in time, Alexis McGivern, who's currently doing exams at Oxford, I think. She's amazing, and she's been really pivotal in getting this together. Alexis worked at the Gallifrey Foundation, who are here at this moment in time, who've launched a platform called Plastic Free Campus, which I would like you to check out if you haven't seen it. It's used for the school. Well, it's based on the story that we have created at our own school, right? So my steps were to gather a crew. I created at my school the Eco Crew because I didn't want people to talk about stuff in a green committee. We had a green committee like most schools do, but I was sort of sick of talking. I wanted action. So I wanted a crew on hands. So if we had stuff to do, we would have all hands on deck. So it's like this idea of a ship, right? And I could see the whole planet as a ship where we have a global eco crew. We're all in it together, you know? And for me to sort of sell it to my boss is also the idea, say, okay, you know, actually there's this huge educational opportunity, right? Look at the skills that students learn in the process of engaging with real world issues, right? I don't want to enumerate all the 21st century skills, but in a way, collaboration and courage and being creative, right, is so important, as you know, as you've learned, right? But also the resilience, the, you know, the unwillingness to give up. I'm sure that Dyson and Sophie and Mark and all of you and Alex, right, you've gone out there in the world and you've had a lot of pushback, right? You've had to talk to people and you keep smiling, right? You're sort of persuasive in the whole thing. And I think that persuasion and just keep smiling in the face of people pushing you back and saying, you know what, I'm not going to go away. I'm just going to stand here and I'll be back tomorrow. And I'll come back with the same question. I'm going to be relentless. And I think we have to be daring to be relentless and to go back and to say, you know what, like Dyson says, we want to thrive on this planet, right? I think it's really important. And I think education is a part of it. And we can educate for action. I think we can educate to make the difference and to see how much fun it is. Actually, I was scared. I will be very honest with you. When I stepped into this space, I felt very uncomfortable, right? I knew what I was doing, now I didn't. But you figure it out. And I think you create community along the way. Because I think I would like to impart on you young people is that there are a lot of allies in my generation and beyond. Because when we started talking within our community, right, to our parents, and we started talking to our caterer, and we started talking to the other teachers and the leadership, everybody recognized that this was the right thing to do, right? That is not enough though. You have to sort of be really persuasive and get the arguments through. And seeing how it changed the students and what was possible, that really persuaded people to say, oh wow, we can do this. So at our school, we've gone through the full journey of eliminating single-use plastic, replacing it sometimes by biodegradables, right? We're still looking at, can we really say that we are biodegrading all our biodegradables? Are they not ending up in landfill? I can't say with 100%, but that's the ongoing journey, right? So I'm delighted to be on this journey with all of you. I hope that you pass on the torch and the light to everybody. I see that we have a sense that we're lighting all these lights of the young students around the world, and we get this sense of a global movement, right? And I'm really proud to be part of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan. Yeah, those words are really encouraging, especially for young students and activists. So we can now go to the Q&A. Yeah, we still have 15 minutes for this Zoom session. So yeah, so Kimlat Multimedia, yeah, there's a question in the chat box. Yeah, if I may, I can probably summarize it. So what are your plans in terms of engaging the government, especially ministries, departments of education in your respective countries, since we are under this crisis? And what are your plans in terms of policy advocacy, communication, lobbying in your communities to reach far-flung areas under this COVID-19 pandemic? Yeah, so of course it's challenging to organize now given the current situation. So how can we still push for our campaign? So probably can any one of our young activists in the panel who wants to answer the question?
Sure, I can take a first stab at this.
Okay.
I won't be. I'm not going to answer every part of this question. Just that way, everyone else can have a shot at answering it too. But in terms of policy advocacy and being able to communicate with other youth, at least within the state of Hawaii, and being able to represent youth who are from disadvantaged portions of the islands, because there are. What we've been doing is we've been just building power. We've been coming together, having meetings, creating a game plan for when our government reopens. So that way, as soon as it's reopened, we have as many pieces in place as possible. We have our entire plan set out, and we can push as hard as we can with this. And so this involves, reaching out to different organizations, government entities, to collaborate with them. No one gets this job done alone, whether it's as an individual or as an organization. And really, yeah, we've been trying to utilize the current time that we have, thanks to COVID-19, not just as a time for us to, take a break and take a nap, but to be able to use it as time to build some of that energy and prepare for when session resumes for us.
Thanks, Dixon. So maybe someone can, from the panel, you have wants to share.
So if I can just add something from my perspective, I think it's really important that we create a sort of sandwich approach, right? Mm-hmm. So that we have the groundswell of the movement that we're doing at this moment in time, and in a way that sort of attracts the layer of governance and the layer of decision-making at a policy and a top level, right? And I think it's so much more powerful if we get those two together, right? Because then we are going to look at the whole issue. And what I found in my school is that once you get the results in, you see how it changes the students and how it can change the community, and actually how it creates community, right? That you find at all the different parts, right? Including the cleaners and all the people there, right? Talk the same language. I mean, parents have been so encouraging. Students are sort of separating the waste when we have a school picnic or something like that, right? To really create zero waste events. When people see that, zero waste events becomes the policy, right? And I think that's how the one can influence and sort of attract the other.
Thanks, Jan, for the answer. Yeah, definitely there should be like a top-down, bottom-up, approach in organizing and campaigning. Okay, so we have.
Sophie, you have something to say too?
Yeah, Sophie from.
Yes. Thank you. I have a really similar view to Jan on that, and I think it's really important not to underestimate the effect that local small scale change has and the ripple effect that that can create, because obviously it's so important to contact governing bodies and to try and get them aware of what your views are and what movements you want to put in place. But you have to show that that works at small scale sometimes. As Tiara was saying, with the whole point of plastic-free campuses is that you show that something works on the campus level, the school level, and that has a ripple effect and can be implemented at larger levels and end up affecting government decisions.
Thanks, Sophie. There's also another question from Farah Rauzana. What is the very first step that we should do to implement plastic-free campus? Since the university has many departments and faculties, and how about the use of communication materials such as posters, those IECs, and do you think it will be effective? Yeah, thank you. So this is more of really a practical question. So anyone from the panel?
I would like to answer that. So the very first step that Jan also has mentioned already, and everybody does this, is to do that meeting where everybody's in there. The deans are in there for the universities, your sustainability coordinator, all the stakeholders, including cafeteria heads, etc. They should all be in this one meeting that that administrator should be in, and we should get the buy-in of the administrator, because inevitably they will be the ones who will be directing this. They will be the ones who will determine where to get funding for this and that, where to order, where to implement these policies, etc. They will be the one revising these policies. So that has been the most effective first step for most universities. And about spreading communication material for awareness, we could all be creative about this in our own ways, but definitely posters help. It depends on your context, but from past universities and organizing committee experience, awareness is always important in the form of like posters that you see when you go to school, educational materials that are there for you to use. So yeah.
Thanks, Tiara. Okay, there's another question in the. Okay, sure. Mark.
So
yeah.
I agree with Tiara. No, that comes from the perspective of an administrator, where they gather immediately all the stakeholders. But when it comes to the perspective of students, for example, your administrator is not yet is not yet familiar with the plastic-free campuses movement. So the advocacy must come from the students. So in our experience, it is the students first who create a group of students who are willing to support the advocacy, and then we address our concerns to the administrators. And it is still, to support the previous explanation, it all boils down to the administration as to how they will proceed with the plan. So yes, the first step must be depending on the perspective, whether it is from the students or from the administrators. And also, yes, the use of communication materials such as posters are effective, but we should also take note of the fact that we must combine all the resources, not just posters, but also online, social media, campaigning, etc.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. So there's a question.
Jan has something to say.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry.
Hi. Can I just also respond to what Ginny Lynn just brought up, that it's a tough first step. If I can just tell the anecdote of how we started out, I think, Mark, we were a bit similar to what you did, that actually I got together with Alexis and another colleague, Jill Robinson, and basically they challenged me. I said, oh, shall we do it little bit by little, right? Start at straws. I said, no, we're going to go cold turkey on this thing. And we're going to set ourselves a time frame of about 5 months to do it. So I think the part where it really started was to create a narrative. I think the communication is extremely important. So it's writing a scenario, sort of imagining your school or your university, what it would be like to really live that. And for us, it was the realization that actually that is our mission, right? Most schools and universities educate for a better future, right? For me, it was just pointing out that, listen, can you really defend that selling plastic bottles at, you know, in a vending machine at school, that is part of education for a better future? Obviously not. So pointing out, right, the discrepancies between the mission on the one hand and what you're doing on the other, right? I think once you start pointing that out, really sort of rubbing your finger at the sore spot, then you start unraveling the texture and finding out, so how should we do it? And involving people in that question, right? We started out, we didn't have all the solutions. We figured it out along the way. So I think it's more sharing the question than forcing people into answers, right? I think that is how you build community. And I think that's really important. So creating that collective narrative that say, we are in this together, we have to solve it because it's part of our mission. So let's do this together and let's figure it out.
Okay, thanks, Jan, for that perspective. So there's a quick question for Mark, because it's, so I am particularly interested in the efforts of youth groups in the Philippines in developing social media strategies against the use of plastics in campuses and communities. What has been done about this before this, the launch of this campaign? Yeah. Mark?
Yes, yes. So before, our strategy is really to appear personally. We conduct symposiums, events, etc. So out of those events, out of those symposiums, we have documentation, pictures, and videos. Especially, we create an after movie, and that's what we show, or that's what we post on social media. And also, and some other times we edit some videos and posters that are advocacy related, so that we can continue to campaign online amid even during this pandemic.
We can have the last two questions. There's a quick, this is really interesting, you know. What are your thoughts about the use of single-use plastics in relief operations and waste management of or PBs during this time? So maybe Bon Hernandez can answer that question. The goal coordinator for plastic. Bon?
Thanks, Jed. I'm not sure if my bandwidth is strong, so I'll switch off my video. It's a great question. As we know, given the current pandemic, there's been a surge in the use of single-use plastics for relief provisions, and also the rise in use of PPEs, most of which are made from plastic materials. On the seeming spike in the use of single-use plastics in relief operations, we hope this is only temporary, and that this will not result in the reversal of policy gains or hard-won victories to reduce or not eliminate single-use plastics. The important thing to realize is that while some are, acting on the basis of fear, it is also not entirely based on science, because we know that there have been studies show that the coronavirus remains in its transmittable form for 3 days in plastic surfaces, on plastic surfaces. So it's not necessarily a safe alternative. And we hope that moving forward, many decisions around this will be based on science rather than fear-mongering, which is what some industry proponents using to justify the use of single-use plastics. On PPEs, there's also obviously a shortage of these materials, and there's proven solutions to have them disinfected and reused, and this is using sterilization, autoclaving technologies. We've seen this being done in countries such as Portugal and Spain, And it's important not to, that they don't end up infecting others or end up in the environment or even incinerated. As we say, that would just create another disaster, and you cannot solve a disaster by another disaster. Over. Thank you, Jen.
That question probably can have the traditional practices in their own countries that hinder the image in successfully crafting campaigns. Yeah, it's really especially with the culture, we buy in sachets or things as well. So, who wants to answer the question?
Alex, maybe?
Yeah, so I live in the United States. I think it's a pretty general, well-known fact that we're pretty much operating with a very heavy throwaway culture here in the States, especially where I'm from in the South, where we don't really have very many environmental policies. Actually, in Florida, there are a lot of laws against implementing single-use plastic bans, which has been very interesting to navigate around. But I think the most important thing to think about here is to know the community you're operating in well, but also know what's going to make an effective messenger. So the tactics I use at Eckerd and St. Petersburg, it's right on the water, aren't necessarily going to work even 30 minutes away at a bigger university in Tampa per se. It's definitely not going to work here in my home in Texas. And say, if I go to Hawaii, I might not be the most effective messenger because I'm not as familiar with the community. I'm not a community member. So I think even though I live in a country that has similar cultures when it comes to single-use plastics, and when it comes to generally environmental policy, it's really important to know the specific community you're working in and what's going to make them tick, but also how you can be an ally to that community as well. That you're not just coming into that community and telling them what to do, rather you're working coherently with that group of people.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I guess, oh, sorry, Jim.
Thank you. Sure, Lisa, can, yeah.
Yeah, just to kind of quickly echo what Alex said, although, right, Hawaii and Florida were within the same country, the culture between the two is definitely different. And I think in Hawaii, what's really interesting is that there aren't a lot of, I guess, cultures and traditions here that really hinder the implementation of this kind of policy. We're actually quite an interesting testing ground because one, we're an island in literally the middle of nowhere. A lot of our things have to be shipped here. For example, if all of the shipping, like mats and containers and airplanes that shipped our stuff here were to get blocked off due to us getting hit by a Cat 4 hurricane, we would have approximately a week's worth of food. And then we'd have to, start eating each other or something. And so that kind of situation really helps to push for this kind of self-sustaining legislation and efforts, both education-wise and through policy. And so, yeah, I think in Hawaii, at least, it's really been, if anything, kind of a bonus, at least from what I've been able to tell and from my friends who don't live in Hawaii and live elsewhere in the world have told me.
Okay, so you had this point over top of the hour, so we're really thankful for those in this session, but either for the live updates. And yeah, I also link the press kit in the chat box. You can find materials there, websites of different organizations, photos and profiles of activists and quotes as well. You can also find their Twitter handles. So if you want to reach out to them directly or for the interviews, feature articles, or yeah, you can schedule interviews with them over the call. Yeah, so thank you very much, everyone, and yeah, I hope you'll have a good day, good morning, good night. We're coming from different parts of the world in this virtual press launch, and yeah, so thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Amazing,
everyone.
inspiring work. Thank you.
Mahalo.
Bye.
Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Mark.